A woman in a silk robe stood in the doorway, sipping coffee. "You missed a spot," the woman said. "Left side, near the door." The blind woman turned her head toward the voice. Her eyes were open, brown, still. They saw nothing. "Where near the door, Fumni? Figure it out. You've got hands." The blind woman crawled forward, feeling the baseboard with her raw fingertips, searching for the spot she missed, the spot she would never find, because there was no spot. And there never was. Fumni Kessi just liked to watch her crawl. But 300 miles away, in a glass office tower in uptown Charlotte, a doctor was opening a folder. And inside that folder was a will written by a dying man who knew exactly what his wife would do the moment he was gone. And that will was about to change everything. If you're new here, this is Fate and Folktales, where every story carries a lesson, and fate never forgets. If you believe that the cruel always fall and the humble always rise, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's begin. Because this story right here, this one is going to leave you speechless. The doctor's hands were trembling, not because he was nervous. Dr. Osei Boki had delivered news that shattered families before. He had told wives their husbands were gone, and he had sat across from daughters and watched their worlds collapse in a single breath. But this was different. He looked down at the document in front of him. Then he looked up at the woman sitting across the table. She was smiling, legs crossed, nails freshly done, a diamond pendant resting against her collarbone like she had dressed for a celebration. Her name was Fumni Kessi, and she had no idea what was about to happen to her. "Before we begin," Dr. Boki said slowly, "I want to confirm, you are the current resident of 4412 Morningside Lane, the property registered under the late Kweku Kessi?" Fumni tilted her head and smiled like the question was beneath her. "Yes. I've been living there since my husband passed. 3 years now. Can we move this along? I have dinner plans." Dr. Boki nodded. He opened the folder. And the first line of the will changed everything. But to understand why this moment mattered, to understand why every word in that document hit like a sledgehammer, you have to go back. Back to the day Fumni Kessi first showed her true face. Back to the day the cruelty began. 4 years earlier. Charlotte, North Carolina. Kweku Kessi was the kind of man people trusted without knowing why. He wasn't loud, wasn't flashy. He drove a silver Toyota Camry with a dent on the rear bumper that he never bothered to fix. He wore button-down shirts with the sleeves rolled to his elbows and shoes that were always clean but never expensive. He worked as a civil engineer. Quiet desk, quiet office, quiet life. But Kweku had a secret. 22 years ago, before he moved to the United States, Kweku and his younger brother Yufi had started a small construction supply company in Takoradi. They pooled their savings, everything they had. Kweku handled the books. Yufi handled the people. They made a good team. When Kweku left for America, he kept his stake in the company. Yufi stayed and ran it. Over 2 decades, that small company grew into one of the largest construction material suppliers in West Africa. Kessi Brothers Supply Limited. Kweku never talked about it. Not to his co-workers, not to his neighbors, and certainly not to his wife, Fumni. He married Fumni 6 years ago. She was beautiful, sharp tongue, expensive taste. She liked nice things and made sure Kweku knew it. Every month she pushed for a bigger house, a newer car, a better neighborhood. Kweku would smile and say, "We have enough, Fumni." She hated that answer. But Kweku had something he loved more than anything Fumni ever wanted. His brother Yufi. Yufi was 3 years younger than Kweku. Shorter, rounder. A laugh that could fill a stadium. He had married a woman named Araba. Quiet, gentle, with a smile that could calm a storm. And Araba was blind. She had lost her sight at 23. A rare autoimmune condition attacked her optic nerves over the course of 8 months. By the time the doctors understood what was happening, it was too late. The world went dark, and it never came back. But Yuffie didn't care. He had fallen in love with Araba before her sight began to fade, and he told her on the day the doctors gave the final diagnosis. "I didn't fall in love with your eyes, Araba. I fell in love with your voice, your laugh. The way you hum when you're cooking. I'm not going anywhere." They had 11 good years together. Then Yuffie had a heart attack. Massive, sudden. He collapsed on a Tuesday morning in their apartment in Charlotte. He had moved to America 2 years earlier to be closer to Kweku. And by the time the paramedics arrived, he was gone. Araba was sitting 3 feet away from him when it happened. She heard him fall. She heard the sound his body made against the kitchen floor. She crawled to him and held his face in her hands and called his name over and over. But he was already gone, and she couldn't even see his face one last time. Kweku was devastated. Yuffie wasn't just his brother. He was his best friend, his partner, the other half of everything he had built. There was no question about what would happen next. "See, Araba is coming to live with us," Kweku told Fumni that night. Fumni's jaw tightened. "For how long?" "For as long as she needs." "Kweku, I didn't sign up to take care of—" "She's family, Fumni. She just lost her husband. She's blind. She has no one else." Fumni stared at him. Her eyes were cold, calculating. But she saw the look on Kweku's face and knew this wasn't a negotiation. "Fine," she said, "but she stays out of my way." Araba moved in the following week, and for a while things were okay. Not warm, not loving, but okay. Kweku made sure Araba had a proper bedroom. He installed handrails in the hallway. He labeled the kitchen cabinets in Braille. He drove her to her doctor's appointments every month. Fumni ignored Araba like she was furniture. She didn't speak to her at meals, didn't acknowledge her in the living room. I walked past her like she was a shadow. Araba never complained. She stayed quiet, kept to herself, cooked her own meals when Fumni made it clear she wasn't welcome at the dinner table. And then, 14 months after Araba moved in, Kweku got sick. Liver cancer. Aggressive. By the time they caught it, the tumor had already spread. The doctors gave him 5 months. He lasted 4. In those 4 months, Kweku did something no one expected. He rewrote his will. He met with his lawyer, a man named Adjoa Sarpong, 4 times. Long meetings, detailed conversations, every clause deliberate, every condition precise. "You're sure about all of this?" Adjoa asked during the final meeting. Kweku nodded. His face was gaunt. His eyes were sunken, but his voice was steady. "I know my wife, Adjoa. I've watched her for 6 years, and I know exactly what she'll do the moment I'm gone. So I'm building something she can't outrun." On his last night alive, Kweku called Dr. Osei Boki. They had been friends since college. Both studied at UNC Charlotte before their careers split. "Osei," Kweku whispered. His voice was barely there. "If anything happens to Araba, if Fumni breaks her promise, you'll know what to do. The lawyer has everything, but you decide when." "I'll protect her," Osei said. "I swear. Don't act too soon. Let the truth show itself. The will is designed for patience." 3 days later, Kweku Kesi was gone, and Fumni finally had the house to herself. Almost. She was about to make a decision that would cost her everything. She just didn't know it yet. The first thing Fumni did after the funeral was redecorate. New curtains, new throw pillows, a 65-inch television mounted above the fireplace. She spent money like she was trying to outrun her grief, except she wasn't grieving. The second thing she did was move Araba. Araba's bedroom was the second largest in the house. It had a window overlooking the backyard. Kweku had set it up with everything Araba needed: a Braille clock, textured rugs so she could feel the layout, a small speaker that played audiobooks. Fumni wanted that room for a home office. She walked into Araba's room on a Wednesday morning. Araba was sitting on the bed, running her fingers over the pages of a Braille book. "You're moving," Fumni said. Araba tilted her head. "Moving where?" The back room, next to the laundry. The storage room? It's not a storage room anymore. I cleared some space. Hi, there's a mattress. Araba's fingers stopped on the page. Her lips pressed together. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She had learned in the 2 weeks since Kweku's death that arguing with Fumni was like arguing with a wall, except the wall didn't enjoy it. Kweku set this room up for me, Araba said quietly. He installed the handrails. Kweku is dead. Fumni's voice was flat. And this is my house now. You can stay or you can leave. But if you stay where I put you. Araba moved to the back room that afternoon. It was 7 feet by 8 feet. One small window near the ceiling, too high to reach, not that it mattered to Araba. Concrete floor with a thin rug thrown over it. A single mattress pushed against the wall. The water heater hummed in the corner, and the dryer vibrated through the wall every time Fumni did laundry. No braille clock, no speaker, no audiobooks, just a mattress and the sound of machines. Araba sat on the edge of the mattress. She placed her hands flat on the surface. It was hard, thin. She could feel the floor through it. She folded her hands in her lap, and in the darkness that was always there, the darkness that never left, she whispered to Yuffie, "I'm still here, my love. I'm still here." And somewhere behind the silence, she swore she heard him answer. Fumni settled into her new life like a queen settling into a throne. She joined a women's social club, got her hair done every 2 weeks, went to brunch on Saturdays, posted photos of herself in Kweku's house. Her house now, she corrected anyone who said otherwise, looking polished and perfect. And Araba became invisible. Every morning, Araba woke at 5:30, not by choice. Fumni banged on the back room door and told her to start cleaning. Araba would feel her way down the hallway. No handrails anymore. Fumni had removed them because they looked ugly, and begin wiping down the kitchen counters. She cleaned the bathrooms. She mopped the floors. She folded laundry, all by touch, all by memory, all blind. If she bumped into something, Fumni clicked her tongue. Clumsy. If she dropped something, Fumni sighed. Useless. If she asked for help, Fumni laughed. You have 2 hands. Figure it out. Araba ate after Fumni was done. Whatever was left, usually the bottom of the pot, sometimes just rice with no stew. She ate standing in the kitchen because Fumni didn't want her feeling around the dining table like a lost animal. Araba ate standing, every day, for 3 years. She never sat at that dining table again. At night, she lay on the thin mattress in the back room and listened to the water heater hum. She counted the vibrations from the dryer. She traced her fingers along the concrete wall and imagined Yuffie's face, the face she had memorized with her hands before he died. The shape of his jaw, the curve of his ears, the way his cheeks lifted when he smiled. "Tell me about the sky tonight, Yuffie," she would whisper. And in the silence, she would invent his answer. "It's purple tonight, Araba. Not dark, purple. Like the cloth your mother used to wrap around her waist on Sundays." She would smile, and then she would cry. Silently, and so Fumni wouldn't hear. But someone else heard, not through the walls, through the fence. What happened next changed everything, and it started with a plate of food left at a fence. Her name was Mrs. Ama Darko, 68 years old, retired high school principal, lived alone in the house next door to the Kessie property on Morningside Lane. She had a vegetable garden in the back, a rocking chair on the front porch, and a habit of knowing everything that happened on her street without ever leaving her yard. She had known Kweku, liked him. He was the kind of neighbor who shoveled your driveway without being asked and never mentioned it. She had met Araba a few times before Kweku died. Sweet woman. Quiet. Araba used to sit in the backyard on warm evenings, face tilted toward the sun, humming softly. After Kweku died, Mrs. Andarko noticed the humming stopped. Then she noticed something else. One morning, early, still dark outside, she heard the back door of the Kessie house open. She looked out her kitchen window. Araba was outside, dragging a trash bag down the driveway, barefoot, feeling her way along the wall of the house. No cane. Fumni had taken it 3 months in, said it scratched the floors. Araba stumbled on the curb, fell. The trash bag split open. She sat on the cold ground and tried to gather the garbage with her hands. No one came to help her. Mrs. Darko put down her coffee and walked outside. "Child," she said softly, "let me help you." Araba flinched. She turned toward the voice but didn't look at anything. Her eyes were open, brown and still, but they saw nothing. "I'm fine, ma'am. I'm sorry for the noise." "Don't apologize. Where is your cane?" Araba hesitated. "I don't have one right now." Mrs. Darko knelt beside her. She took Araba's hands gently. They were rough, cracked, the hands of a woman who had been cleaning without gloves for years. "What happened to your hands, child?" Araba pulled them back slowly. "Cleaning products. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. From that morning, Mrs. Darko watched. She watched Araba take out the trash before dawn. She watched Araba hang laundry in the backyard, feeling for the clothesline, dropping pins, picking them up, starting over. She heard Fumni's voice through the open windows, sharp, cruel, careless. "Why is there a streak on the mirror? Are you stupid or just lazy?" "I can't see the mirror, Fumni." "Then wipe it again until I say it's clean." Mrs. Darko's hands shook, not from age, from fury. She started leaving things at the back fence for Araba. A plate of food covered in foil, a pair of gloves, a small radio with an earpiece so Araba could listen to music without Fumni knowing. One afternoon, Araba found the plate at the fence. She felt the foil, peeled it back. The smell of jollof rice and fried plantain hit her and she stopped breathing. She hadn't had a full meal in weeks. She ate slowly, standing at the fence, tears rolling down her face. "Thank you," she whispered toward Mrs. Darko's house. Mrs. Darko watched from her window, her jaw tight, her decision made. She picked up her phone and called a number that Kweku had given her 2 weeks before he died. "If anything ever happens to Araba," Kweku had told her over the fence one evening, his voice already weak, "call this man. His name is Dr. Osei Boki. He'll know what to do." The phone rang twice. "Dr. Boki speaking." "Doctor, my name is Ama Darko. I live next door to the Kessie house. Kweku gave me your number before he passed." Silence. "I'm calling because you need to know what's happening to Araba." And she told him everything. The phone call lasted 41 minutes, and by the time it was over, fate had started moving. Dr. Osei Boki hung up the phone and sat in his office for 11 minutes without moving. He stared at the framed photo on his desk. 2 young men at a graduation ceremony. Kweku on the left, Osei on the right. Both grinning, both 22, both believing the world was theirs. Now Kweku was dead, and the woman he had married was treating his blind sister-in-law like an animal. Osei picked up the phone again and called the lawyer. "Ajoa, it's Osei." "I've been waiting for this call," Ajoa Sarpong said quietly. "How bad is it?" "She took her cane. She moved her to a storage room. She has her cleaning the house every day. Blind, no assistance, no protection. She feeds her scraps. She hasn't had a medical checkup in 3 years." Ajoa exhaled. "Then the conditions are met." "Walk me through it." Kweku's will has 3 tiers. Tier 1 is the standard distribution. If Fumni treated Araba with dignity, she would receive the house and a monthly allowance from the trust. Tier 2 activates if Araba was neglected. It redistributes everything. Tier 3, Ajoa paused. Tier 3 is what Kweku called the mirror. The mirror? If Araba was actively mistreated, abused, confined, stripped of her dignity, then everything reverses. The house, the trust, The shares in Kessie Brothers Supply. Everything transfers to Araba, and Fumni gets nothing, not 1 cent. She also faces a formal audit of every dollar she spent from Kweku's accounts during the period of abuse. Osei closed his eyes. How much is the estate worth? Kweku's 48% stake in Kessie Brothers Supply alone is valued at $71 million. Add the real estate, the trust, and the liquid assets. The total estate is approximately $112 million. The number sat in the room like a living thing. Fumni has no idea, Osei said. No, Kweku made sure of that. He never told her about the company. She thinks she inherited a house and a modest savings account. Send the letters. Schedule the reading. I'll bring Araba myself. 3 days later, the Fumni Kessie received a certified letter from the law office of Sarpong and Associates. She read it at the kitchen counter while Araba mopped the floor behind her. The letter requested her presence at a formal reading of the last will and testament of Kweku Kessie. Fumni frowned. I thought the will was already settled. She read the next line. This reading concerns previously undisclosed assets not included in the initial probate. Fumni's eyes widened. Previously undisclosed assets. She looked at the letter again. Then she smiled. Slow, wide, hungry. More money, she whispered. Behind her, Araba kept mopping. Head down, hands raw, silent. She had no idea what was coming either. But fate did. And fate was already in the room. And the conference room was on the 11th floor of a glass tower on South Tryon Street in uptown Charlotte. Polished concrete floors, a long walnut table, 8 chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city skyline under a gray afternoon sky. Fumni arrived first. She wore a fitted burgundy dress, gold earrings, gold bracelet, heels that clicked on the concrete floor like a countdown. She sat at the center of the table, not the head, the center, because she wanted to be seen from every angle. Araba sat at the far end. She wore a plain navy dress, the only decent thing Fumni had allowed her to keep. No jewelry, no makeup. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her fingers were rough and cracked. Her nails were short and uneven. A thin white scar ran across her left wrist from a fall in the kitchen 6 months ago that no one treated. She didn't have a cane. She had felt her way into the building holding Dr. Boki's arm. Mrs. Darko sat across from Araba. She had been invited as a community witness, a provision Kweku had written into the will. Ajoa Sarpong, the lawyer, sat at the far end with a thick folder and a calm expression that betrayed nothing. Dr. Osei Boki stood at the head of the table. "Thank you all for being here," he began. Fumni drummed her nails on the walnut surface. "Let's make this quick. What assets are we talking about?" Osei looked at her. He didn't blink. "Before I read the will, I want to share some context about Kweku's financial life that was not publicly known." Fumni waved her hand. "Fine. Go ahead." Kweku Kessie and his brother Yufi co-founded a company 22 years ago called Kessie Brothers Supply Limited. What started as a small operation became one of the largest construction material suppliers in West Africa. Kweku held a 48% stake in that company. Fumni's hand stopped drumming. As of last quarter, Kessie Brothers Supply is valued at approximately $148 million. Kweku's 48% stake is worth roughly $71 million. The room went still. Fumni's lips parted. Her eyes went glassy. Her chest rose and fell faster. In addition to his stake in the company, Kweku held real estate assets, a family trust, and liquid investments. The total value of his estate, previously undisclosed, is approximately $112 million. Fumni grabbed the edge of the table with both hands. $112 million. She had been living in his house for 3 years thinking she inherited a modest savings account and a paid-off mortgage. She had complained about money, cut corners, resented Araba for being an extra mouth to feed, and the whole time she was sitting on $112 million. Her eyes darted to Araba. The blind woman sitting quietly at the end of the table. The woman she had shoved into a back room. The woman whose cane she had taken. The woman she had fed scraps and called useless. Araba was Yufi's wife. Yufi co-founded the company. That meant Fumni's brain was racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. She was the wife, the surviving spouse. This money was hers. It had to be. "I will now read the will," Dr. Boki said. He opened the folder. "I, Kweku Kesi, being of sound mind, I do hereby declare the following as my final will and testament." Fumni straightened her back, crossed her legs, lifted her chin. "To my sister-in-law, Araba Kesi, the wife of my late brother Yufi, my partner, my best friend, I leave Yufi's full share of Kesi Brothers Supply Limited. His 48% stake, held in trust by me since his passing, now transfers entirely to Araba. In addition, I leave her my personal 48% stake. Combined, Araba Kesi will hold 96% of Kesi Brothers Supply Limited." Fumni's mouth opened. No sound came out. 96% of a $148 million company. "I also leave to Araba the property at 4412 Morningside Lane, Charlotte, North Carolina, the family trust, and all liquid assets in my estate." Fumni stood up, and her chair shot backward and hit the window. No, I'm his wife. Osei raised his hand. His voice did not change. "There's more. To my wife, Fumni Kesi, the distribution of your portion is conditional." Fumni froze. "Condition 1. I have entrusted Dr. Osi Boki with the authority to investigate at any time the treatment of Araba Kesi in my home. If Araba has been treated with dignity, given proper living quarters, medical care, and respect, Fumni shall receive the house and a $5 million settlement." Fumni's breathing was ragged. $5 million. She could live with $5 million. She could... Condition 2. If, upon investigation, it is determined that Araba has been mistreated, neglected, confined, or subjected to cruelty in any form, Fumni shall receive nothing. She shall be removed from the property immediately. All expenses she incurred during the period of guardianship shall be audited. And if she is found to have exploited Araba's vulnerability, legal action will be pursued. The room was silent. Condition 3. If Araba's cane, the mobility aid I personally provided for her, has been taken, withheld, or confiscated for any reason, this shall be considered an act of deliberate cruelty. Tier 3 of this shall activate automatically. Fumni's legs buckled. She knew. She had taken the cane. 12 weeks after Kweku died. She had leaned it against the wall in the garage and told Araba she didn't need it inside the house. "You know the layout. Stop being dramatic." The cane was still in the garage, dusty, untouched for almost 3 years. Osei removed his glasses, and he set them on the table slowly. "Mrs. Kesi," he said, "I have completed my investigation." "Stop," Fumni whispered. "I have photographs of the room where Araba has been living for the past 3 years. 7 feet by 8 feet. A mattress on a concrete floor. No braille accommodations. No clock. No assistive devices." "Stop, please. I have medical records confirming that Araba has not seen a doctor in 3 years, despite her condition requiring regular ophthalmological and neurological monitoring. I have testimony from your neighbor, Mrs. Ama Darko, who has witnessed ongoing neglect and verbal abuse." Mrs. Darko spoke. Her voice was quiet, steady, unbreakable. "I watched her drag trash bags in the dark with no cane and no shoes. I heard you call her useless through the walls. I fed her through the fence because you weren't feeding her enough to keep a grown woman standing. And she ate that food crying, Fumni. Standing at the fence, crying." Fumni turned to Mrs. Darko. Her face was twisted, not with shame, with rage. "You had no right." "Kweku gave me every right," Mrs. Darko said calmly. "He came to my fence 2 weeks before he died. He could barely stand. He held onto the wood and he said, Watch her for me, Auntie Amma. If my wife shows who she is, call Osei. He has the will. The will has teeth. Fumni's legs gave out completely. She collapsed into the chair. Her hands were shaking. Her gold bracelet rattled against the walnut table. Her perfectly applied makeup started to crack as tears streamed down her face. "No," she kept whispering. "No, no, no." Osei placed a document in front of her. "See, effective immediately, you are to vacate 4412 Morningside Lane within 72 hours. Full ownership transfers to Araba Kessi. You will receive nothing from the estate. The audit of your spending during the past 3 years will begin next week." Fumni stared at the document. Her tears weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fury, of loss, of a fortune she had been inches from, a fortune she had destroyed with her own cruelty. She looked at Araba. Araba hadn't moved. Her hands were still folded in her lap. Her head was slightly tilted. She had been listening to every word. Her face was still, calm, but her chin was trembling. "Araba," Fumni said, her voice breaking. "Araba, tell them. Tell them I gave you a room. I gave you food. You took my cane, Fumni." Araba's voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "You moved me to a room next to the washing machine. You made me clean your house every day, your mirrors, your floors, your toilets, and I couldn't see any of them. You took the handrails Kweku built for me. You took the braille clock he bought me. You took the speaker that played my audiobooks." Her voice wavered but didn't break. "Yufi used to describe the world to me. He told me the sky looked like purple cloth. He told me flowers smelled the way music sounds. He made me feel like I wasn't missing anything." A tear rolled down her cheek. "You made me feel like I was nothing." The room was completely silent. Araba's hands unfolded slowly. She placed them flat on the table, her rough, cracked, scarred hands, and she said one more thing. "But I'm still here." No one spoke. Osei walked around the table, and he knelt beside Araba's chair. He took her hands gently in his. "Araba," he said, "Kweku asked me to protect you. I'm sorry it took this long." Araba's lip trembled. A fresh tear fell. "He told me once, if I ever felt alone, to remember that someone was keeping a promise." She paused. "Was it you?" Osei's eyes filled. He squeezed her hands. "It was always me." 6 months later, Araba sat on the front porch of 4412 Morningside Lane. Her porch now. Everything was different. Dr. Boki had arranged for a team at Atrium Health to evaluate her. A new ophthalmologist, a neurologist, a physical therapist to help rebuild the strength in her hands. The damage from years of cleaning products without gloves would take time to heal, but it was healing. She had a new cane, custom-made, lightweight, and she kept it beside her chair always, not because she was afraid someone would take it again, but because it was a reminder that she had the right to move freely through the world. Mrs. Darko had moved in next door permanently. Well, she had always lived there. But now the fence between their yards had a gate. Araba had asked for it specifically. "So I don't have to eat standing at the fence anymore." Mrs. Darko had cried when she heard that. Then she installed the gate herself that afternoon. 68-year-old hands and a power drill. She refused help. The house was different now, too. The handrails were back. The braille clock was back on the nightstand in the master bedroom. Araba's bedroom now. The speaker played audiobooks every evening. The back room had been converted into a proper storage space. No mattress. And no one would ever sleep there again. Kessi Brothers Supply was thriving. Araba had appointed a new managing director, a young woman from Takoradi named Efua, and the company's revenue had grown 12% in the first quarter under new leadership. Araba received monthly briefings in audio format. She listened to everyone. Yufi would have been proud. Fumni was gone. She had left Charlotte entirely, moved to a small apartment in Raleigh. The audit had revealed she had spent over $300,000 from Kweku's accounts on personal luxuries during the 3 years of Araba's confinement. Legal proceedings were ongoing, but Araba never spoke about Fumni. Not once. When reporters called, and they did because a story like this doesn't stay quiet, Araba declined every interview. "My story isn't about her," she told Dr. Boki. "It's about the people who didn't look away." Now she sat on the porch. The afternoon sun was warm on her face, a cup of tea in her hands. The wind moved through the trees and she listened to the leaves. Mrs. Darko sat beside her. Their chairs were close enough that their arms almost touched. "The garden is blooming, Araba." Araba smiled. "Describe it." "The tomatoes are turning red, deep red. The sunflowers are taller than the fence now. They're leaning toward your yard like they're trying to listen to you." Araba laughed. A real laugh. Full and warm and free. The kind of laugh she hadn't made in years. Yufi would say the sunflowers were eavesdropping. He'd be right. Araba lifted her face toward the sky. She couldn't see it. She might never see it. But she could feel the sun. She could hear the wind. She could smell the tomatoes ripening. She could feel the warmth of a friend sitting beside her. She could feel the wood of the porch beneath her feet. Her porch, her house, her life. And somewhere, maybe in a sky that looked like purple cloth, Yufi and Kweku were watching. Not because they needed to anymore, because they wanted to see her smile. Kweku Kesi understood something most people learn too late. You can't trust words spoken at a bedside. You can only trust what people do when you're not watching. So he didn't write a will. He built a mirror. He gave Fumni 3 years to show who she really was. And she showed him. Every cold plate, every snatched cane, every locked door. She showed him everything. If you want to see who fate visits next, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because in these stories, the people who hide cruelty behind closed doors always forget one thing. Fate has a key to every room.
Años exactamente, bueno, no exactamente, ¿no? Un grupo de soñadores en La Paz decidió fundar algo que trascendería generaciones. El glorioso Club Bolívar. No imaginaron que... Oye, me he esforzado al hacer el discurso. ¿Qué ponen ZZ, chat? Basta, me he esforzado, se los juro que me he esforzado, bro, basta. Por favor, me he esforzado en el discurso, respéteme un poquito, chat. Bueno, igual lo voy a leer, me la chupan, la verdad. Chat, nefastos. Son unos envidiosos, ¿saben? Son unos envidiosos. ¿En qué me quedé? No imaginaron que ese nombre se convertiría en un sinónimo de grandeza, lucha y de orgullo nacional. 101 años después, Bolívar no es solo un club. Es un sentimiento que se hereda, que se sufre y se celebra. Últimamente sufrimos mucho por Robato, ¿no? Es el latido de miles de hinchas que en cada victoria y en cada caída nunca abandonan, ¿verdad? Nomás. Porque ser celeste no es una elección, es una forma de vivir. Muy bien, qué lindo, un aplauso. Bravo, bravo. Muchachos, tremendo discurso. Buenas noches, Edito, ¿cómo estás? Por lo menos ponte tu chompita, pues, un busito para leer el discurso. A ver, cállate, Gabo, ¿vos quieres ser baneado? Este discurso lo he hecho en mi cama, pensando en lo que es ser bolivarista, la verdad. Un aplauso, por favor, y con ayuda también del gran ChatGPT. Un aplauso para ChatGPT. Ah, ¿cuál era la finalización? De un ratito, dice. Que estos 101 años sean solo el comienzo de muchas más llenos de alegría. Felicidades, Academia. Felicidades, Bolívar. ¡Bravo! Aplausos para ChatGPT, muchachos. Para vos no, dice. Buenas noches, muchachos, ¿cómo están? Gracias por estar aquí, perdón por prender tan tarde. La verdad estaba viendo mi serie, estaba viendo el regreso de Justin Bieber. Estaba, bueno, toda la tarde me vi fútbol, hasta vi el partido del Tigre. Vi el partido de River, vi el partido de Oriente. Las declaraciones de Martins, tremendo lo de Martins, bebé, le tiró palo a Villegas, pero bien tirado. Huevada, en su cama lo hizo todo pajeado pensando en el... No, ¿qué dice este Arielito? Oye, ¿quiénes vamos, no? Mi sobrino de Kinder redacta mejor. Dile eso a ChatGPT, yo no he redactado. ¿Qué me estás molestando a mí? Felicidades. Qué pasado. Pues la verdad nomás. ¿Qué quieren que les diga? A ver, ¿qué les puedo decir, muchachos? Yo no publiqué nada en mi página, la verdad no hice nada estos días. Han sido momentos difíciles. Bien triste, ¿no? Mentira. Pero no, muchachos, bueno. Quiero felicitar a todos los que son bolivaristas y hoy en día más que nunca, ¿no? Que es difícil ser bolivarista en el sentido de todo el contexto que estamos pasando con el técnico. Pero si lo ven por el otro lado también hay que sentirnos orgullosos porque hemos llegado a estos 101 años. Creo que como la institución mejor parada, tanto económicamente, futbolísticamente y dirigencialmente diría, pero no, creo que no, ahí nos falta, ¿no? Ese eslabón para poder ser una institución sólida. Y como ayer creo que lo decía Dardo Gómez en su publicación en el Cholet, que Dios mío, ¿de dónde cagan tanta plata, bebés? Más fuegos pirotécnicos que en el aniversario de La Paz, no mames. Tremendo, felicidades a los del Cholet y a ver si pasan pues algunos monies. No mentira. Que dijo que el dirigente tiene que estar siempre al lado del hincha. Y eso es mucha verdad. Y no es por darle palo a Claure, porque él tendrá sus funciones, las cosas que tiene que hacer. Pero creo que por esa parte que estoy... Uy, ¿qué? No, todavía no va a arrancar la fiesta, Tucán, tranquilo. y por esa parte creo que está bien, ¿no? Está bien. Y bueno, se vienen unas futuras elecciones donde el principal candidato es Dardo Gómez a seguir manejando lo que es este club tan bonito que es Bolívar, ¿no? Por detrás, obviamente, yo creo que tiene que haber gente que lo asesore. Espera, ¿mi gatita se echó pipí? No, ya, más bien. Me ha asustado, chicos, la verdad, me ha asustado. Ya saben ustedes, rayada está mi gatita últimamente, ¿no? No, ¿qué dice este Edipox? Y bueno, muchachos, nos espera, creo, un futuro grandioso. Yo lo dije, creo que esta es una oportunidad ya con el Stadium de una vez establecernos como un club de fútbol, pero serio, y fuera de ser autosostenible, que se proyecte a más, ¿me entiendes? No estancarnos en solo ser un club boliviano, sino ya empezar a soñar con, no sé, a ver, por ejemplo, la venta de butacas en el estadio, venta de marketing, merchandising, que se vaya ampliando más las sociedades, ¿me entienden? O sea, yo creo que si una cabeza maneja bien todo eso, creo que podemos despegar, ¿me entiendes? Y no estar ahí creando leyes de mierda con el gobierno, pidiendo perdón para que nos perdonen los impuestos, ¿no? Los gatos, ¿no? Entonces, creo que, o ser un club que está a punto de desaparecer, como Wilstermann, que desapareció de la liga, pero está a punto de desaparecer, pero absolutamente de todo el fútbol. O ser clubes que le están mangueando el auspicio a la UTV y chupándosela al presidente de la federación por subsistir. Entonces, creo que Bolívar es muy grande y tiene, creo que, trascender. Eso es lo que nos falta, trascender, dar ese pasito para trascender y lograr los objetivos que siempre hemos querido, ya sea una Copa Sudamericana o una Copa Libertadores, ¿no? Y siempre tiene que ir de la mano. Estos últimos años, creo que es la verdad, se han ido alejando a las generaciones bolivaristas, al hincha común, al hincha fanático, a todos los tipos de hinchas se han ido alejando del club por justamente el mal trabajo que se ha ido realizando estos últimos años en Bolívar. ¿Qué decía Valdivia? Creo que dijo que dejó un club autosostenible. O sea, sí, no vamos a decir que no. Económicamente creo que se dejó un club autosostenible. A ver, Solís, no pidas Gartic. Ya les he dicho qué cosa de Gartic. Hoy día es aniversario del club. Déjame hablar a ver de mi club, Solís. Igual en el grupo de WhatsApp, no, Tucán, jugaremos Gartic. No quiero dibujar huevadas, déjame, no voy a jugar Gartic. Ya les he dicho, si quieren dibujar, agarren un cuadernito y empiezan a dibujar sus huevadas. No me vengan a molestar a mí con su Gartic. Saludos, Reyisita, ¿cómo estás? ¿Todo bien? Gartic, temática Bolívar. No, métanse su Gartic por el poto, ya les he dicho. Y bueno, muchachos, ¿en qué estaba? Es que me enerva, muchachos, cada vez Gartic, basta, no quiero jugar Gartic. Vayan a jugar Gartic con sus minas. Goclingo, huevadas hablas. Ya, espera, ¿qué habla este Ignacio Loza? Este Auri. Y bueno, muchachos, creo que sí, yo me quedo con eso. Este martes tenemos un partido muy importante en lo económico. Para mí, muy importante para ver qué está el club de cara a este año, porque creo que es indispensable ganarle a ese equipo. En Copa Libertadores, obviamente por los 3 puntos y más. Pero pensando a futuro, creo que es muy importante que se vea buen fútbol, ¿no? Y que la gente ya esté un poquito más tranquila con el funcionamiento del equipo. Ayer contra Bebé, bueno, el día sábado contra Bebé, se jugó un buen partido, no digo que un malo partido. Creo que empezaron a aparecer personas, o bueno, jugadores que no estaban apareciendo, como es el Papu Velázquez y muchos más, ¿no? Entonces, interesante. Y bueno, apareció Cauterucho, que en el partido de Libertadores no había aparecido ni de sombra. Parece que Cauterucho solo le mete goles a equipos como ABB. Y preocupa un poquito eso, ¿no? Hoy ganó el Tigre, está puntero con nosotros. Nacional Potosí también está compartiendo la punta con nosotros y muchos más que vienen bien entonándose en lo que es este torneo, ¿no? Que empezó retardísimo y creo que nos va a pesar no solo a nosotros, sino a los demás equipos que están participando en copas internacionales, ya sea Blooming el caso, ¿no? Y otros más. Mete gol equipos chicos como Dorniro, pero Dorni ni jugó. ¿Qué dicen, chicos? ¿Qué dicen? La era Robato es la peor de todos los tiempos, bebé. Tomando en cuenta el centenario que es una vez en la vida. Sí, es la peor. La peor. De los últimos 10 años, ¿se podría decir que lo de Robato es lo peor que nos pudo pasar? A ver, piensen. Es que con lo que me dice el técnico de... A ver, ustedes pónganse a pensar. Si tu técnico te dice que el objetivo era solo clasificar a Libertadores y que no estaba obligado a ser campeón... Puta, ahí me la bajó mal, amigos. Sinceramente, me la bajó mal. Podía aceptarle todas sus huevadas y todo, pero cuando dijo eso, es como que hizo sentir me hizo sentir un club más del montón, ¿me entiendes? Un Nacional Potosí, una Aurora, no sé, otros equipos bien X. Así me hizo sentir, la verdad. Por eso yo no, yo vuelvo a repetir, yo voy a hablar de lo que veo en la cancha y este martes si es que Bolívar gana se va a aplaudir y si es que Bolívar pierde, bueno, también se va a criticar algunas cosas. Y si han fallado en algunas cosas, igual vamos a criticarlas, vamos a observarlas y vamos a dar nuestro criterio. Pero fuera de eso, Robato no puede venir a achicar el club, ¿me entiendes? O sea, creo que hemos tenido el parámetro y la vara de estos últimos años, bueno, desde que yo nací, desde que voy a la cancha, creo que el parámetro ha sido que Bolívar siempre salga campeón, ¿no? Bueno, un ratito, vamos a banear a Gaby.